Have you ever had a leader who truly had your back, who trusted you, empowered you, and gave you space to grow? Or have you had the opposite? Someone who micromanaged you, held you back, or even left scars that took years to heal? And when you think about your own leadership, are you building trust through your actions or unintentionally eroding it? Today we're joined by William C. Davis, a leadership keynote speaker, coach, and author of The Leadership Blueprint. William believes that leadership is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. And in our conversation, you'll hear his stories from nearly 4 decades in corporate America, where he experienced both nurturing leaders who lifted others up and toxic leaders who tore people down. This episode will inspire you to stop and think about the way you lead and to ask yourself, what kind of leader do I want to be remembered as? Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm joined today by William Davis. William is an expert in leadership, a leadership keynote speaker, a coach, and he does workshops for organizations. But he's also the author of a series of a book called The Leadership Blueprint. And the premise of this book is that leadership is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. And that's what we're going to unpack today. How can we break down leadership into more simple terms, but then take action to match that? And it doesn't mean it's easy. So I'm really keen to hear this today. It's something that we all struggle with every day. So let's put our thinking caps back on. Let's stop and rethink the simple art of leadership and what we can do to be better leaders in today's world. So, William, without any further ado, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and tell us what inspired you to go into this world of leadership and what inspired you to write The Leadership Blueprint.
Well, thanks for having me on, Nick. I really appreciate it. You know, I got involved in leadership very early in my career, back in high school and in college. I was in an organization called Future Business Leaders of America. And I enjoyed it a great deal because we talked about, free enterprise system and leadership. And it was something that just intrigued me because, it was interesting that if you had ideas and if you had the ability to connect with people, then folks tended to move towards you and work with you and really decide that they wanted to do something with you. So once I got out of college and moved into my secular career, I had some really good leaders early on. One was a lady that I had for probably 2 or 3 years as a leader, and she was very warm, very caring, very teaching, nurturing, mentoring. And then I moved on to another position, and the gentleman that I had at that time, he was very laid back. He was very, hey, I trust you. Do the work. If you have questions, I'm here, but I'm not going to micromanage you. And we had a great relationship, not just in the office, but outside the office also. And what I started seeing were contradictions between how he led and how other people thought they were leading. And they would be very micromanaging and in some cases very tyrannical. In that you had to pass everything past them and they never were happy anything you did. And so what I really tried to do is as I moved up in my career and started having people report to me, I wanted to be the type of person that folks looked at and said, hey, I trust him. He's got my back. He's here to help me. He's, nurturing my career as much as he is his. And so that was really the path that I've tried to follow the whole 38 years that I was working in corporate America. But what I've seen in the last, I'd say 15 plus years is a change in mentality, at least in my opinion, of how people lead. And it's gone away from the very genuine relationship building that I always grew up with and I always tried to maintain, more to a kind of a standoffish. And it's really up to the person that I'm managing or quote unquote leading to be the initiator of interaction and so forth. And so what I told my wife, and it really got frustrating the last couple of years, I told my wife, I said, how do you feel about me you know, leaving corporate America and starting my own business, and let's just give back the last few years that I'm willing to work before retirement, and see if we can't help at least the younger generation maybe understand that leadership that they see today is not leadership that is helpful, and see if we can't change the dynamic of how people look at leadership.
Really good, William. I'm going to unpack a little bit of what you just said, and there's a call to action already in what I'm hearing. So I'm going to say that you were quite lucky. You had two very good leaders early in your career. Not everyone has that privilege. And one of the problems that I see in the world, William, is when someone starts their career with a tyrannical leader, they start thinking that's what leadership looks like. Whereas you were able to see the dichotomy between the two good leaders that you had, and then you started looking around and noticing and naming the differences, going, oh, okay, that's what good leadership looks like. That's what poor leadership looks like. My call to action, listening to that for the audience, do that yourself. Have a look around you and have a look at the leaders that inspire you, the leaders that trust you, and then compare and contrast that to the ones that treat you poorly and the ones that you don't like following. And you can start building your model of leadership going based on the behaviors that I see from the inspiring leader that trusted you versus the leader that didn't necessarily give you the same time of day. We have an exercise in the leadership project called the amalgam leader where we do that, William. We categorize all those behaviors. What did we like? What didn't we like? So that we can start building our own model of leadership. How does that sit with you in terms of this, looking at that difference?
No, absolutely. I think that's a great thing to do because, to your point, sometimes you assume what you see is the right way, and it's not, right? There's a lot of, and that's why, you mentioned it earlier on. To me, leadership is deceptively simple. It looks simple, and to some degree it is, but it takes work and it takes the ability to be dynamic and changing how you lead based upon where you're at in history and the people that you're dealing with and the circumstances you're dealing with. So there's never a one size fits all model. And to your point, what you guys do is absolutely the best approach to helping people understand, hey, this is how we need to move forward.
Yeah, really good. So now we're also building in some situational leadership and some adaptive leadership. Coming back to your first description, the other threads that I picked up, you used the word trust at least 4 or 5 times, William. I'd have to replay the recording to hear it. And what I heard from you was this: I want them to trust me, but to get them to trust me, I give trust. So trust becomes reciprocal. And then the second word was relationship. Relationship and connection were threads that you were using consistently. Let's talk about trust. Let's talk about trust as the oil that makes leadership work. What does trust look like for you?
Well, the challenge that I was seeing from a trust perspective is it was all talk and no action, right? And so when we talk about trust, obviously I trust individuals to do their job and do it the way it needs to be done, or for us to be successful. That's one of the first things I've always instilled in my folks is we win together, we lose together. We never allow anybody to be thrown under the bus to the benefit of someone else. We win together, we lose together. That's why I always had the kind of dynamic as far as meetings go where we discuss together things that are going on, even if it's outside somebody's specific responsibility, to still be able to hear what's going on and be able to provide input based on experiences and so forth. So they trust that they're hearing everything, that they know what's going on and why it's going on. And I think that's really important from a leadership perspective, is that we need to make sure people understand the why of what we're doing. Because when they understand the why, it thus it creates an ability for them to think more wide open and more creatively and more thoroughly to get the best solution. So the trust is I'm giving them all the tools, I'm giving them all the information. And then on the flip side of it, they also understand that I am not viewing them as the competition, right? I saw so many times in my career where, a leader would say, "Oh, I'm out there for you. I'm promoting you. I'm, trying to get you seen and heard and so forth." But yet behind the scenes, they were working in a fashion where they were holding the person back. So, I always made sure my people understood, hey, look, your success is my greatest accomplishment. You succeeding is my greatest accomplishment because that means I'm allowing you to do the work that you need to do. So they feel like I've got their back. I'm looking out for them. I'm not going to throw them under the bus. And then for me, it's they're going to do the best job possible to help us win as a team. I have yet to ever see anyone who tries, to do a bad job. you know, Sometimes people do a bad job because there's some parameter or something there they don't understand or they need help with. But I've never seen anybody intentionally. So I always give people the benefit of the doubt. Hey, it went wrong. Let's see what we can learn from it and let's move forward. Everything's fixable, Mick. That's the thing. Now, I said that one day and somebody came up to me afterwards and said, I'm a surgeon. That's not necessarily true. So, yeah, okay, I'll give you that. There may be some situations, surgically where that's the problem. But 99% of the world, everything's fixable. Don't overreact, and let's help the people that have the challenges learn and move forward and succeed.
There was an element of situational leadership in what you were saying there about the surgeon, but I would still say that those people in the operating room, they all trust each other. They all still trust each other. Okay, so let me share what I took away from that is that trust is not a set of words, it's a set of actions. So it's very easy to say, I trust you. And I'm not saying don't say that because it is an important thing to tell your people that you do trust them. But the trust is built through your actions. It's not through your words. And to demonstrate that trust, the inclusive leadership that you spoke about, that we win together, we lose together, the open and transparent communication, that people are pretty smart. They have a sense if things are not wine and roses right now, if things are not going great and the leader's hiding information, it erodes trust. And then the element of the game playing, like if you think there's politics going on where there's a bit of game playing going on in the background, that erodes trust. And what builds trust is the magic words that you used. When people feel like the leader's got their back, then you're on your way. And then trust can become something that you continue to build, and it's reciprocal. They'll trust you and you'll trust them, and then you can go on to do great things together.
Yeah, and perfect example. When I worked for a financial institution through the majority of my career, we did a lot of mergers and acquisitions. And during the course of those, we would have to give, periodic report outs to both the executives at our financial institution and then whoever we had purchased. And I always made sure that my team was the one doing the report out. Why? Because they did the work. They did the work. They knew the information. They knew the ins and outs, and they needed to be able to be seen and be heard, and people to understand the value that they bring to the table. And I had some executives from other groups that would come up to me and say, "You can't do that." And I'm like, "Why can't I do that?" Well, if you do that, then I have to do that. Well, they didn't want to do that because they wanted the spotlight, right?
I wanted the spotlight. Yeah.
That's not what we're here for. When I become a leader, I've already earned that position because I've done something right in my career, and I'm respected and people feel like I can do the job, right? So it's now my turn to start giving that back to the people that are with me and work for me and give them the same opportunity I was given.
Yeah, really good. Let me tell you what that sounds like to me. That sounds like trust. That sounds like empowerment. That sounds like respect. That sounds like gratitude. It also sounds like opportunities to learn and grow. If you're a leader that does the presentation for your team every time, you're robbing the opportunity for other people in your team to have this moment in the spotlight for a moment so everyone can thank them for the work that they did, the gratitude. But it's also, they might be looking to build that skill. They want to be able to present. And if you do the presentation every time, they're not learning and they're not growing. And that's one of the things people want in the workplace as well.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's, and again, to me, that's what leadership is. You give your people the opportunity to succeed. And, sometimes succeeding is a little uncomfortable for them, But, like you said, that's how they grow. That's how they grow. Get the experience and desire to do more.
Very good. Circling back to our original set of words from your first opening introduction, William, we said the word relationships and you used the word connection. And in fact, even in your college days where you started to emerge as a leader, you said that it was the connection that brought something to you. Tell us about the importance of this connection and relationships in leadership.
Well, humans by nature are relationship type people. For the most part, nobody wants to be alone. You think about a child when they're born. What do they look for? They look for the comfort of a relationship, mother, dad, siblings, whatever. And that doesn't change just because we get older. And so what I have found throughout my career is not everybody wants to come into your office and sit down or go into a boardroom and sit down and have you say, okay, let's get to know each other, you know, because that to them still puts you in a position up here and them in a position down here. So there's still a disconnect, right? In the relationship, they still view you as someone it's hard to talk to and hard to be open up to, and so forth. So what I always did is, you have to meet people in relationship building where there's a comfort for them. And what I always did with my folks is, hey, what do you like to do outside of work, outside of the office? I had a young man, very smart kid, and he was just a joy to be around. But he was nervous all the time. He was always afraid he was doing something wrong, always afraid he was going to be fired. And so I just said, okay, what do you want to do? Or what do you like to do outside the office? He says, well, I like to golf. Well, so this was 30 years ago, so I still golfed back then. And I said, okay, we're going to go take an afternoon off and we're just going to go play golf. And when we got out there, I had him drive the cart. And the first, 3, 4 holes, it was still very stiff, very uncomfortable. And so I got up to drive and I shanked a shot out in the woods. I don't think they've still found that ball. And, he got real, kind of tense, like, how's he going to react to this, right? Because some people take themselves so seriously, they start cursing and, screaming and whatever. And I just started making a joke of it, started laughing with him. I said, I did that because I wanted to take it easy on you. I didn't want you to feel any pressure, you're just having fun with him. And so once he saw that was the way I dealt with situations, man, you would have thought by the time we were done, we'd known each other all our lives. He was able to open up. We were able to talk about things he liked, didn't like, things he was concerned about, things he'd, learned, so forth. And I've never had as close a relationship with people, working relationship with people, when I've tried to do that same thing in an office, because there's just still something that keeps them from letting loose and being very open and very honest with you. Another example I give you, I had a young lady that when she interviewed with me, was very, very good and knew exactly what needed to be done. And I was so impressed with her. I hired her. But when I, brought her on board and she started working, she started every time she did something, she would message me or email me and say, "Is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I trust you." And so I quizzed her as to what was going on. She never would open up. Well, she liked to walk at lunch. And so just one day I went up to her and I said, "Hey, can I go with you?" And she said, "Sure." So we walked around, and about the third or fourth time we walked around the lake that was on the campus, I got her to open up. And it was because she had had such a horrendous micromanager in her first job that nothing she did ever satisfied him. Nothing she did was ever right. She always had to redo it. And so it was to your point, it was a learned response because of a bad situation that she'd had. And so I had to, be very careful and help her understand, look, that's not the way I am. I trust you. I want you to succeed. I'm very impressed with the work you do. If you have an issue or concern, we'll talk about it and we'll get it to where it needs to be. But I'm looking at you to be the one to carry forward. And It took 3 or 4 months. She'd had a lot of psychological damage, from that first relationship. But she's an executive with the bank today. I'm so proud of her, and she's just done such a marvelous job in her career.
I love to see the beaming smile on your face when you talk about that. There's two words that are screaming in my head when you say that. I'm going to say them, then I'm going to unpack it. Environment and human. And I'm going to work backwards on both of those examples, whether it's shanking the ball into the woods and letting out an expletive or being approachable as you walk around the lake. You showed yourself as human, not as the boss. And once you showed yourself as human, you were approachable, and the person, it would have been tough for her to admit that, by the way, the traumatic experience that she had, that's probably been burning inside her for a long time. And you finally gave her the ritual that allowed her to let it out. And the second one was the environment. You've got me thinking here, this is going to be one of my takeaways today. My go-to, William, is coffee. And I'm going to work back to that for a second. A lot of people do team building and go, yeah, I got to know my team because I got them around the boardroom and we played some games and we spoke about what we like, what we dislike, and all this kind of stuff. That's still a bit artificial, but taking it out into a natural environment where they feel comfortable is the answer. But this is what you've got me thinking. My go-to is the coffee chat, because guess what? I love coffee. But did I ask the other people, hey, what do you like? No, I didn't. I said, hey, let's go for a coffee. And we did what I liked. So my call to action is to look at some of my team members and go, hey, what do you like to do at lunchtime? And it could be the walk around the lake, or that's really good, William. I really quite like this. So that's one of my calls to action. I encourage the audience, do the same. Don't just go to your comfort zone, go to their comfort zone, and then show yourself as human. And then let's see where the trust builds. Let's see where the connection builds. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, that there's not a one size fits all, right? And building those relationships, you have to get to know. And what I tried to do was get to know each individual member on my team individually. And then I got to know the team dynamic together. So knowing them individually, I then was able to understand what the team dynamic was and how I had to adjust or deal with it. My wife laughs at me, but I always have explained this as, I look at this as like a marriage. You've got two people, you know, whatever age they are when they come together, but they've all got differing experiences, backgrounds, upbringings, whatever you want to say, and now they're coming together and trying to mesh, right? And when you're trying to mesh, there's going to be bumps in the road. And hopefully in a marriage, you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 years to really get everything smooth and ironed out and work well. In, work relationships, you don't have that. Generally you have 2, 5, 10, 20 or more people, right, that you're trying to blend that working relationship with, and you have a very short time in which to build it.
Yeah, really good, William. So I'm hearing now the individual connections and then building up to the team dynamics. And you were saying something similar to this before. It's then your job to create the environment where those team dynamics can work for you, right? Not against you. If you take it by chance, team dynamics can sometimes drive you into the ground. But if you've curated the right environment, the team dynamics will work for you, not against you.
Absolutely. And for about a 10-year period there, we were traveling probably 75, 80% of the time. And what we would do at night was we would make sure that we all ate dinner together, right? And we, to the best of our ability, we wouldn't talk shop. We just talked, family. We talked activities. We talked things, everybody liked to do. And we would laugh and we would joke. And, they were really stressful days. And that really kind of helped people decompress. And when we came back in the next morning, we were all in pretty good moods and ready to hit the day, fresh.
Yeah, good one, William. And I'm going to add something here now and say it's the same ingredient. So we spoke before, the leader to the team member, we are looking for trust, we're looking for a connection. Guess what? They need to do that with each other too. They need to trust each other. They need to connect with each other. So create the ritual, create the environment where they can do that as well.
Yeah, and that was why I was always so emphatic. We don't throw anybody under the bus, right? If something goes wrong, I'm not worried about who did it. Let's get it fixed, and then we'll figure out how we don't have it happen again, right? And that's an approach that we all need to talk about because, somebody else may be in that role down the road and they need to know, the challenges that occurred.
Yeah, really good, William. All right, so I want to explore one more thing, and that is something we said early days as well, which was you're saying that leadership is simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Unpack that statement for us.
Well, again, because you're dealing with human, right? You're dealing with humans and everybody has good days, everybody has bad days. And managing or leading people through good days is pretty easy. But when you have bad days, and the bad days you could be talking about at work, but more often than not, it's something personal for them that is causing them challenges. Could be marital, could be children, could be, any other kind of family dynamic. As a leader, you have to be able to help manage them or lead them through those days where they can still be successful and come out on the other side good. You can't, you need to, and obviously I understand you have to be very careful about, to what level you get involved in personal challenges that somebody has. But you have to be able to help them get through whatever the bad dynamics that they're dealing with are and not let it ruin their career. And that's sometimes very difficult to do. And what I've always encouraged people to do is look, think outside the box. My teams have worked from home for the last 25 years. I was way ahead of the curve with working at home because just the type of job that we did, it was just easier. They get a chance to spend more time with their family when they were home. I mean, because they were on the road so much. But sometimes that's a simple answer. Hey, why don't you work at home today? I don't come in the office. You don't need the noise and all the frustrations that go with it. Just work at home. Or, hey, take a few days off. We'll cover for you. Don't worry about it. Just relax. Do what you need to do. If you need me to do something, help you, whatever, let me know. Sometimes those are the easiest answers and they do the most good. But I also think you have the responsibility when someone is having those challenging times to make sure that you're aware of the resources that your organization offers to help them, right? Just, easy examples if it's financial. You as their leader should have some ability to help their raises and bonuses and so forth. But, most companies have resources that can help the people, you know, and so just, help them understand they're not alone. They have, backing, one with you to do whatever you can to help them. But then there are other elements out there that help them so they don't feel like they're approaching life alone.
Yeah, really good, William. So what I'm hearing there is you need to be their leader in the good times and the bad times, including the bad times may not even be in the workplace. And this is not about invading their privacy or anything. It's just being there for them. And you are right. Most organizations have some version of an EAP program, an employee assistance program. And then the problem that the person's going through may be beyond your skill set and your qualifications. They might need to talk to someone that's got expertise in the problem that they're having, so you can reach out to programs like an EAP program to help them. That's really good.
It's interesting, Nick. You mentioned that. I was talking to a lady the other day who was a therapist, and she said the second highest reason for people coming to visit her behind family issues was work related issues. And it could have been any number of things, but it was the second highest reason of people coming to see her. So it's something that I think we need to be more aware of, that people and just I'm going to get on my soapbox here for just a second. In the States, and I'm not sure how it is there. During the pandemic, everybody started working from home, and so we asked people to work from home and figure out how to work with your children at home, et cetera, et cetera. Well, now, 5 years later, we've determined for some reason we have to now go back to the office. But what I think corporations and businesses as a whole fail to understand is people have now adapted their lives to work at home. And now, when you're asking them to come back into the office, if they have kids, now you're asking them to find childcare, have to get involved in a carpool, any number of things that, just look at the news. It's not that easy to just trust anybody in the world with your kids anymore, right? But on top of that, expenses have gone up 10, 15, 20% in the last 5 years or so. And so many organizations are just, you know, eye dropping out raises at 1 or 2%. Well, now you've got an inequity between now what my expenses are going to be because you're asking me to have childcare and all these other expenses with my kid not being at home, and what I'm actually bringing home. So what are you forcing them to do? You're either forcing them to, find another job on top of the one they're doing, find a better job that pays more, or the worst case scenario is you're asking them to start cutting out something from their necessities to pay for something that is being pushed upon them.
Yeah, really good, William. And there's a lot there around listening and understanding the person, their needs, etc. Coming back to the therapist, I want to share that I was instantly surprised and then not surprised. And I'll explain why. People spend up to 1/3 of their life in the workplace, William. So yes, they're with their family 2/3 and they're in the workplace 1/3 of the time. And I want that to sink in for the leaders listening to this. That means that your role as the leader, you're curating the environment where someone is choosing to spend 1/3 of their life with you. And I can tell you, if they're going home, the difference between whether they had a very good day or a very bad day often rests with you as a leader. If they go home and they've had a bad day, they're not screaming at their family going, "Oh, you're not going to believe what that spreadsheet did to me." They're saying, "You're not going to believe what that jerk did today," right? So it's a responsibility, and you don't want your people to end up having to go to therapy because of your leadership. Sorry to bring it to stark realization for some people. It's a responsibility. Take it seriously. How does that sit with you? It's a bit harsh, but it's true, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And again, I think, when we talk about leadership, I think that is one of the things that we miss when we are choosing leaders. That ability to be empathetic, that ability to have the emotional intelligence that's needed to be responsible for people. And because that's what you are, right? And to your point, 1/3 of the time, you're responsible for those people. And, we are in a totally different time than we were even 5 years ago. And so how I lead today is different than how I would have led 5 years ago or 20 years ago. And so you've got to be able to adapt. And if you don't have the emotional intelligence to understand how the decisions that you make and the actions that you carry through with affect other people, you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, well said, William. I can't add anything more there. You've absolutely nailed it. So I'm going to summarize a few things that we've covered today, William, and then take us to our final set of questions. So listening to the show today, think about this concept of looking at the leaders around you and learning from the good, the bad, and the ugly, and learning what was it about that inspiring leader that inspired you? What was it about that demoralizing leader that demoralized you? And you can start building your own model of leadership. Then we're looking to build trust, but trust is built through actions, not through words, and making sure that you do have that open and transparent communication, that you demonstrate trust, not just say the words, that you build a connection with your team. My homework here is to choose a better environment for when I'm trying to build a relationship and connection with my people. So I'm going to be more deliberate and more intentional with that. The team dynamics are also built on trust and relationships. And then the final part is this situational adaptive leadership that, yes, leadership is simple, but it doesn't make it easy. And what works for you today may not work for you tomorrow. What works for one person doesn't work for the next person. What works for this one person today may not work for them 3 months from now because they're growing and learning and they're having other impacts in their life that you need to be conscious of as you lean into this responsibility of leadership.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. You nailed it.
All right, William. So let's go to our final 4 questions. These are the same 4 questions we ask all of our guests. What's the one thing you know now, William Davis, that you wish you knew when you were 20?
How I deal with people affects them. It's so easy now to see it, but back then I was so worried about making an impression myself that you often are don't think about who or how you trampled on somebody to get to where you want to be or where you got to be. And that's something that I regret decisions that I made when I was younger. It was not worth it because again, at the end of the day, what have I really proved? What have I really won? I've not won anything by doing that.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to share with you back that we're all human. We all make mistakes. I've got a long list of mistakes I've made in my leadership career as well. But the thing that I'm taking away from that is that we succeed through our people, not at the expense of our people. Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
William, what's your favorite book?
The Bible.
Okay. All right. Very good. In all we're getting close to 300 episodes. That's only the second time that's come up, but I bet if we asked all of our guests, it would be more common than that. What's your favorite quote?
It's out of the scriptures. Matthew 7, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I mean, that's the way I try to live my life, right? Because I don't want to succeed at the expense of someone else.
Yeah, good one. Okay. And finally, William, people are going to be interested in your leadership blueprint and the work that you do. How do people find you?
I do have a website. It's williamcdavis.net, williamcdavis.net, and it's got subjects for the various speeches that I give. I have a link to Amazon where both of the books that I have written are available for purchase. They're Kindle and paperback, both. And then at the bottom of every page has my WhatsApp and my Instagram and so forth. So anybody that wants to get a hold of me, they can.
Wonderful, William. And we'll put those links in the show notes as well to make it easier for people to find it. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experience. You've certainly got us to stop and rethink some of the basics of leadership and turn it into some more intentional actions where we too can be better leaders. There's a quote that I've read from you, William, and I want to finish on this as I hand over to you, is the world doesn't need more leaders, it needs better leaders. And I fully agree with you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Mick, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity. I so appreciate the work that you guys do because it's so important. It's something I don't think people think enough about. You asked me earlier what really, started driving me toward this. Well, 2023, the World Economic Forum came out and said we had a worldwide leadership crisis. That's a pretty emphatic statement. And then November the same year, the U.S. News and World Report Harris poll here in the United States came out and said 78% of the respondents said that we had a leadership crisis in corporate America. So it's a subject that is obviously very near and dear to people's hearts, something that they deal with, and we need to do a better job of helping them succeed.
Fully agree, William. And the answer, if everyone's thinking, well, what can I do? Well, you can do. You can be the catalyst that starts a change in your organization by leaning in and taking actions to be a better leader. Not more leaders, better leaders.
Yeah. Make a difference in your hemisphere, right?
That's it. All right. Thanks, William. That's brilliant.
Thanks, Mick.
A huge thank you for William C. Davis for sharing so much with us today. As you reflect on William's wisdom, I invite you to ask yourself, do my actions truly show my people that I trust them? Or am I only saying the words? Am I creating an environment where my people feel safe to connect, open up and thrive? Or one where they hold back? When things go wrong, do I throw people under the bus or do I live by, we win together, we lose together? And most importantly, am I helping my people succeed through me or in spite of me? Leadership may be simple, but it's never easy. The challenge is to live it every day through trust, connection, empowerment, and care. In the next episode, we're going to be joined by the world-renowned Julian Treasure, who's going to share with us the forgotten leadership skill, why listening changes everything. Thank thank you for listening to the Leadership Project at mixbeers.com. A huge call out to Faris Sadek for his video editing of all of our video content, and to all of the team at TLP. Joanne Goes On, Gerald Calabo, and my amazing wife, Say Spears. I could not do this show without you. Don't forget to subscribe to the Leadership Project YouTube channel, where we bring you interesting videos each and every week. And you can follow us on social, particularly on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Now, in the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and join us on this journey as we learn together and lead together.